Thank you guys for watching the Animal One Guy YouTube videos. If you like this video, please leave a like and even comment below. And if you like all my content, please hit the subscribe button. And why not click the bell icon for notifications too? That way you can see all my videos. Give me the ball. Everybody's been asking for it, so here we go. I have to give into the peer pressure. No, this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. It just takes a while to gather all the information, guys, and do all the research, so I guess here we go. I'm going to go over products that I use, and I'm going to have the links in this description, and then going forward, I'm going to have the links in all my video descriptions, and I'm going to go back and add them to other ones. Now, I'm going to try to break this up in section, guys, because this might be a long video, but I want it to kind of stick to the following order. We're going to go over UV lights that I use in the first one, and the types of domes that I use, and things that have to work with UV lights. After that, we're going to go into the type of heating elements that I use, and put into those types of domes. And then after that, thermostats, things that have to do with that, humidity, etc. And then after that, vitamins, the powdering, any type of supplement that I really use, or anything that helps with the reptile. There are going to be products, guys, that I don't show you here because this is for my Amazon affiliate now. So if you don't know, when you purchase these products, I get a very small sample, but that helps a lot. So if you need to buy things, or you need to know what type of lights to use, what types of heaters, this does get me a little bit of a kickback. I do go over in some other videos things that I use that aren't on Amazon because maybe Amazon's too expensive, and you'll notice here, guys, a lot of this stuff is actually, it's really cheap, because the most expensive stuff isn't always the best. There are some things that are higher priced, but I'll go into that. But everything that I'm going to use, I've used for years. I've thoroughly tested it against other products to find the product that is best. So I'm not recommending you the most expensive product. This is what I use for all my reptiles. And you're going to see it, because a lot of it will either be boxed because I have backups, or we can go over to tanks and you can see it in use. It doesn't matter. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is UV. And we're going to start with the Mercury Vapor Bulb. I've got two links below. I've got the Evergreen Pet Supplies. This is a 100-watt Mercury Vapor Bulb. And then I got the Techie Zoo. And I'm linking the 160-watt. They also make a 125-watt and an 80-watt. Those, to me, never seem like it's worth jumping to. These really fit the needs that I want. The 100-watt I use on pretty much every tank that needs a Mercury Vapor Bulb. And then if there's someone that needs high heat and UV, I'll use the 160-watt. Now, some people will get confused about Mercury Vapor Bulbs, guys, on, hey, too much UV, too much heat. I've said this before, but a lot of these go on lamp stands. So if it's a little too much heat or a little too much UV, you just raise the stand up. And if it's not enough, you drop it down a little bit. These have to go in a deep dome, guys, which is the key. And I've got a link for the deep dome. It's an 8.5-inch opening on the deep dome because the bulb is so big. Let me show you a dome like that. So we're right next to our rescue. This is there's a Mercury Vapor Bulb in here right now inside a deep dome, and you'll see the link there. They're not expensive, but these are good not only for the Mercury Vapor Bulb, but good for the full-size CFL bulbs because they're nice and deep. Some of the shorter ones for heaters, which I'll show you later, they're too short. The bulb sticks out the bottom. The bulb is completely tucked in here, and this dome is going to help reflect a lot of the UV down and a lot of the heat down. And it's nice because you can either use these to strap it down to the top of a cage on the top, or hang it from a light fixture, which is also really good. And you want a proper dome, guys, because you want it to have a ceramic end, not a plastic end, because the plastic ends can melt, and that's not good. So deep dome, ceramic, reptile dome, it's in the link down below. These guys are down below, and like I said, great for UV and great for heat. One bulb, don't need two things. That's great. Let's get them out of the way. Now we're going to go into probably one of the most controversial things that people always talk about, and sticking with UV, that is going to be the type of light. Whether you're doing a tube light or you're doing a compact fluorescent. Both are okay, guys. Both have uses. In my personal use, guys, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest, I find the compact fluorescent to be much better. And I'll go over why I find that. But I have both linked because I use both. But your compact fluorescent just outputs a lot more UV. And that's really important. Your tube, even if you get a T5, this is a 10.0, it's linked below. This is a 24 watt bulb, so about the same power. This is 26 watt, this is T5, high output. It's 10.0 UV, and you get a thing like that, and this is in Simba's cage, but here's an old T8 one. You put it in a fixture, and even if you do some type of reflector that's down and whatnot, these just don't give off a lot of UV. You know, even if, let's say you're in a normal rack that's 2 feet high, they barely get one index on the Ferguson scale down. And a lot of times people are under UVing their animals. Now, on the flip side, this gives off a ton of UV because remember, you're putting this is a full-size CFL, you're putting it in a dome. This is what it looks like if people want to know. And that dome, that deep dome, is going to reflect that UV down. And they make these smaller. If you get the less powerful size, like the 5.0, this is going to be smaller, so then it doesn't have to go in a deep dome. It can go in a short dome. You could still put it in a wide dome, or you could put it in a more spotlight dome. So sometimes with these, people be like, it's too much UV. Yeah, you could really put out a lot of UV, which can stress out your reptiles. So you want to know where your reptile is in the Ferguson zone, which is why the solar meter is the most important, because it will tell you your Ferguson zones, and you'll turn it on, and this is just a normal LED desk lamp I'm using. You'll see how much UV is actually getting from the light to, in this case, you'd want to put this sensor at or near the basking spot, but where the reptile will be, and measure their UV. So there's things you can do to lessen the UV on these that you cannot do with these. And there's things that you can strengthen. So one, just like with these, you could obviously buy a more powerful bulb, a 10 or a 5. Same thing, 10.0 or 5.0 output. This will still be the same size, although you can get this longer than 24 inches, which is a 2-foot fixture. You can get them in 18, I think, and you can get them wider too. But you want the T5 high output. But with these, you can get this in the full size, or like I said, you can get the 5.0, which is even smaller, and you can adjust it by the type of dome for the reflection. So if you want a really powerful spot of UV that's right on the basking spot and really nowhere else, you know, you can use like a 5.5 inch dome, this is coming up later, to really keep it down there. If you want it more spread out, you go with something like an 8.5 inch dome, so that beam that's coming out is going to be more dispersed, and they go all the way up to 10-inch domes, so you can really disperse that. Or in some enclosures, I don't even have this in a dome. I'll just put the shiny side of aluminum foil around it, or maybe it's near a corner to do that, and that disperses it even more. You don't have the option to really control the dispersal of these. These got a bad rap when they first came out, guys. They were really strong. And also, if you remember CFL, guys, they used to flicker and things like that, and it was really bad for your reptiles' eyes, and they weren't really instant on, and just a problem with CFLs in general. That's gone now. These are absolutely amazing. And sometimes if you have too much UV, as long as your reptile is mobile, it's okay, because your reptile will find a spot, especially if it's an arboreal, in its tank that has the right UV. So like chameleons, for the second part of their day, they don't like a lot of UV. They'll get away from it. They'll go down lower and they'll go in the shade. And that's what they do in the wild. So that's why having one of these is the best thing you can do because you can raise and lower the light. Same thing again, these are in a dome, guys. You can raise it up, you can lower it down. This, you mount the fixture and it's done. So I prefer these. Link is in there. Link for this is in there. I've talked about this so much in my video. You can't go wrong because this also tells you when you have to replace your UV bulb. People are replacing them every 6 months, every 4 months. You don't have to do that. Just check the UV. Once a month, I weigh my reptiles, and I check the UV once a month. And if the bulb is good, it stays. If the bulb is bad, it goes. Sometimes the bulb is getting less strong, but it's still in the correct Ferguson index. Like if the reptile can be between a 4 and a 6, and the light starts off at a 6, and it starts drifting down and it's at a 5, I still don't have to replace it. It's still between a 4 and a 6, and then it gets to 4, but let's say I have the ability to lower that bulb down an inch or two, and that bumps it back up to 5.5. This saves a lot of money, especially if you have multiple reptiles. I'm really passionate about the UV because I have a lot of reptiles, and a lot of people tell me, oh, too much UV, too little UV, and it's like, no, it's actually spot on UV because I test it. But a lot of people don't know that tester even exists, so whatever. The next thing we're going to talk about is how I do some heating and what I really like. So I use in some enclosures that need a little bit extra spot heat, but maybe not light, or maybe want some nighttime heat. I use some ceramic heat emitters. These are just really good to control heat. Again, you can disperse the heat, or you can really focus the heat depending on the type of dome. The nice thing is ceramic heat emitters are not very deep, so you don't need to buy, you know, a $30 deep dome. You can buy a $10 wide dome that's still 8.5 inches. That's the circumference, and this will really disperse the heat. Or you do a 5.5 inch to really focus it. And the nice thing about ceramic heat emitters is you could put them on a dome with a dimmer, although I don't really like that because the temperature fluctuates inside the house, you know. So I like putting them on just a normal dome that's full on, and then a thermostat that we'll get into after. But they come in a variety of power, which is going to be a variety of heat. So down as small as a mini one of 25 watts, all the way up to 200 watts. This is 150. And the stronger it is, you get a little bit of a thicker piece at the bottom, but this thing just really pushes out heat. And if you combine it with a dome, you can really focus it. So in Simba's enclosure, I have a heat radiant panel. You guys may or may not have seen that video yet. I don't think I posted it. And then I have one of these that's on a separate thermostat that has a 50-watt ceramic heat emitter in it that just gets his basking spot up to the correct temp and is only activated with that basking spot. But it's also on a timer, so it doesn't run at night. But these are nice because if you've got close quarters and you need just a little bit of heat, these can really pump out heat. They're small and they're really energy efficient for the amount of heat they put out. And that heat really does travel and get pushed down with the dome, which is really nice. And I've got links. They come in, you'll see them below, 50 watt, 75 watt, 100 watt, 150 watt, which is normally good enough, because if you need more, you go with something better, or you go with 2, is what you do. And again, the types of domes, you've got your deep dome for the lighting, you've got a 5.5 inch dome. This will work for a compact fluorescent, the small type 5.0, or for any ceramic heat emitter. And by doing the smaller dome, guys, you really focus that heat into a spot. It doesn't disperse as much. Same thing with the UV in a 5.0. Again, when you get a larger one, it's going to just spread that heat out more. Not as good for a focused basking spot, but good for just radiant temperatures in a tank, or, you know, you don't have to maybe get as hot, but you need a larger area to cover. These are great. Just absolutely great. So both those domes are linked below. And I'm not trying to go fast, guys, but I don't want this to be a super long video either, so we do what we can do. So we're here at Simba's cage again. This is just going to cause an issue because he's just going to get up and be crazy. But we're going to want to talk about how we regulate all this. So we'll come over here, and the first thing that I always use is a laser temp gun. I've got one linked below. These things are really cheap, but they're awesome. You point it, you pull the trigger, and you get a temperature of that spot. And then normally you can let it go and you can see its temp, and then you can see the highest temp that it got. This is really good, guys, because it also is good to help you calibrate your thermostats, which is important. This is an old one, still works great, and you need one of these if you have reptiles, especially if you have a basking spot, because your thermostat, you can't really put the probe on the basking spot to monitor. You do put it nearby, but if your reptile goes and lays on the probe, then you lose it. So you put your thermostat nearby, but then you use this to monitor. And then obviously, a thermostat. I've got one linked. They're all pretty simple. You just feed a wire into the cage. It's got a probe, and then you set your temp either on Celsius or Fahrenheit. And then these things typically kick on plus or minus anywhere from 3 to 5 degrees. But the nice thing is you can use your laser temp to calibrate these, because sometimes these are off by a degree or two, but if you know that, you can just adjust. And then another thermostat that I use, although it's off right now because it's on a timer, is this guy. And I had to look long and hard for a thermostat that remembers the temp. So again, I talk about this in Simba's heating video, but just so you know, he's got his normal thermostat that runs the tank temp, and that's what controls his coolest temperature that he can get. Okay? Then the basking spotlight is on this, but I don't want his basking spot just to come on and off at a time, and I don't want it to ever get too hot or too cool. So this thermostat remembers the settings you do even when it loses power. So it goes to its own timer, which kicks on at a shorter duration during the day, not the full light, the full heat duration, and then controls the heat of the basking spot. It was really hard for me to find a thermostat that was digital, that you set, that can run with a timer, that won't remember the settings. And you can program amazing stuff in here, guys. So when does it kick on? When does it kick off? It's much more the program board. You can calibrate it in here. It's got a calibration setting. So it's a little more expensive than your $20 thermostat. This is like a $30 thermostat, but it's amazing, the programmability that it has. Okay, and now we come to the water dragon's cage. So if you have something that's a little more tropical, I use a humidistat as well. And kind of the same thing with the thermostat. You can set the maximum humidity or your targeted humidity, and the maximum and the minimum, and then it will actually show you what the current humidity is, and then you can also set the differential of when it comes on. These things are awesome. Again, a probe goes inside the tank. You hook this up to a fogger or mister of some type, but I recommend a fogger, and then it has an outlet. So work 1 is when the humidity is low, and if you have work 2, what you would do is you'd put that on a high humidity item, so a fan, that if the humidity ever got too much, it would blow and lower the humidity. The nice thing too is you can program your alarm in this, so if humidity ever gets too high or ever too low, an audible alarm will go off. This thing is awesome, so I can't recommend it enough. If you have an enclosure that needs high humidity and that you don't want to mist down every day and you want something accurate. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I have to come in the back and open up the curtain, but this is the fogger that I use. And guys, I've used a ton of reptile foggers, and they've always been a pain in the butt in terms of opening and refilling with water. I like this fogger because it holds a lot of water, but you can pour in from the top, which is amazing. So I just come with my pitcher of water, fill up all my foggers at the same time, and walk away. It's hooked up to a humidistat as well, but if you didn't, this thing's got a ton of programs in terms of a timer, how many times a day it turns on, how long it runs for, the strength of the fog that comes out, and then this one actually comes with a Y adapter, So like Mario's cage, I have this split and then it runs into the left, the top left, and the top right to really fill humidity in there. So this type of fogger, the link's in description, is so worth it. And I've used about 4 different ones before I settled on this guy. So that's how you know it's been proven and tested, because nothing is a pain. Undoing the plug, setting that aside, taking the fogger off, turning it upside down, untwisting the cap, bringing it to the sink, filling it up, twisting the cap on, flipping it upside down, up some water spilled that was pooled on the top, putting it in, splashes, get this hose, rehook it up. Did I move it? Is it not aligned anymore? Especially if you have the alignment on the inside for the fog to go in a certain spot. It's just so worth it. Alright guys, we're on the last section, the supplements and things that I use. Although one other thing, can I tell you guys, combined domes like this, I hate these, whether they're the small ones or the large ones. If you put a light in here, the light gets dispersed too much, and if you put a heater in here, that gets dispersed. And then if you have a sensitive light and you put it here and then you put a heater here, that heat makes the light burn out faster. Oh, what a pain. What a pain. But okay, supplements, and oh God, where's she going in her cage? She's doing a wreck. Okay, supplements. So what do I use? Well, it's pretty simple, and I've gone over this routine before, but we'll do it again. So let's kind of burst out what we need. The first thing you'll see on there is I have some Shed Aid. You really don't need this, guys. I do it because I rescue a lot of reptiles, and sometimes I get them with really bad stuck shed. And this just has a couple oils in it and things like that that can help break down the shed better. You can spray it in eye caps and things like that. But for your normal, healthy reptile, they should be able to shed on their own or just a little warm water. But it's not bad to have a bottle of this. Just, you know, store it away. That way, just in case there's an emergency, you get a bad shed in your leopard gecko's eye or something, or a snake, or in the ear, this comes in handy. But for your normal keeper, this is not something you go through a lot. My link is to like a 3-pack. You get it, you'll have it a long time, but you have it in case of emergency, and it's cheap, which is really nice. Then, let's do my daily feeding supplements first. So I have 3 types of vitamins that I go through, and there's a specific reason because not all of these are the same. So in every feeding, if it's an insect or vegetables, I will supplement it with something. What you can use all the time is calcium, which is really nice. It's really good. I like to make sure I get the calcium with D3 just because it's better, and Fluker's makes a really good one that's phosphorus free, so my link is in the description. I like the 2 ounce, lasts a long time. They make a 4 ounce too. That lasts even longer. It's a bigger pack like this. So I get whatever's on sale. That's the big thing. Now, the 2 vitamins, Herptivite and Reptivite. These are great supplements. Most reptiles users will know these are their number 1 and number 2. I don't know, this ultrafine super stick formula. Yeah, I don't know about it. It seems to act the same as everything. But there's a big difference. And it's in their vitamin count, and there's a reason why I use this, but I don't use it all the time. This has vitamin A in it, which can be really good for reptiles right there, their eyes, things like that. But for some reptiles, too much vitamin A is toxic, and so you don't want to use this all the time. I supplement with this. It depends. Every other week for their meal, and this you can use pretty much all the time because it doesn't have vitamin A. So yay, but it's the advanced formulation. So you just want to know, hey, is there a vitamin that my reptile could potentially get too much of, like chameleons in vitamin A, which is interesting because there's a chameleon right on the front. It can be a tricky thing, although that's a Jackson's chameleon. Then the other things that I use is Reptiaid. This is a all-natural immune support booster. They make this in 2 varieties, guys. You've seen me use it. I use it once a month for reptiles that weigh under 250 grams and reptiles that weigh over. And you just shake it, and it's got an eyedropper, and it tells you, based on your reptile's weight, how much you use, and you do not use a lot. Like, if you look here, my reptile weighs under 25 grams. You're going to see it's 1 to 2 drops. So I do this once a month, but if the reptile's feeling sick or stuff, I do it more, and they tell you, hey, how much to use for that. So, but since I weigh them once a month, I bust that out. The other thing is stuff I have on hand for if I get a malnourished reptile. I like to keep this on hand, the Fluker's Reptiboost. So this is an appetite stimulant. It's, you know, got high calories, and it makes them eat. And you've seen me use it. It comes in a powder. It's got a lot of protein. It's got fat. It's got, you know, vitamin A again, vitamin D, vitamin E. So you get a mix. You get in here, which is really nice. You get the mixing cup, you get the spoon, and you get a syringe, which is really cool. I typically mix this with a variety of these products, including this Jumpstart from Zilla. This is that stuff in the tube everyone asks me about. And again, if you just look, it's, I mean, it's basically just a high amount of vitamin A, a high amount of fat, B1, you know, just to pump some vitamins in someone who's maybe very low energy, lost their appetite. And then I have a link to some 1 milliliter syringes. These are disposable syringes, but I like that the tip comes through the cap there, so that way, you know, it gets all the liquid out. And I pop these open. The reason why I like using these, because they're disposable and they're so cheap. It's like $10 for 100 of these. Is if you've got a reptile that's sick, you don't want to be washing and reusing the same syringe for all the reptiles. You want to use it and throw it away if they bite it, or you could continue to use it for the same reptile, but that would be great. Now, as a surprise ending, because those are all my products, there's a couple things that will be listed in there that I didn't show, like my Mist King Mister, which is good for a chameleon. It's just a timed mister, which is good. But